Rudy was pronounced dead on the set by the ambulance, and while making the movie, he passed out, and it was Jimmy Lynch, who was his close confidant, that said no, he just didn't take his shots this morning, and he's probably running low on energy, and he's not dead. So please hit him with a shot of insulin and stay with him. And yep, that's exactly what happened. His heart started beating again, and he came back around and continued.
When you know the full history of Rudy Ray Moore, even that story isn't surprising. Rudy Ray Moore rose to cult stardom with his album Eat Out More Often, in which many people believe he invented modern-day rap and hip-hop. Moore was not portraying himself on the album, but his character Dolemite. Dolemite originated from conversations that Moore would have with an old wino, who would tell him amazing stories about this character, Dolemite, who was named after a vitamin. In 1975, Rudy Ray Moore wanted to translate his success to film and made a $100,000 movie, self-financed, about Dolemite, which ended up making $10 million at the box office. Moore would go on to make 5 more exploitation films in the 70s, completely self-aware of how silly they were. However, the character Dolemite's last film would be in 1976, The Human Tornado. That was until 26 years later, when he was resurrected for the Dolemite Explosion. This film would have all the Dolemite hallmarks: hilarious sex scenes, salty insults, and an army of all-girl kung fu killers. And there was even more craziness, like Rudy Ray Moore being pronounced dead on set. This is a look back at the 2002 film, The Dolemite Explosion. Director, Frank Pinnock.
Back in the old days, of course, we didn't have as many channels as we do now. So you would switch around, and hopefully you'll find something outside. Like me and my brothers, we just try to find things that wasn't mainstream. Maybe we'll capture or use the hanger, the wire hanger, and move around the UHF stuff, and maybe we'll catch something. I think it was one night late, and this was on a black and white TV too. I don't even think it was color. I remember staying up late. I'm a late person, stay up late, and everybody's falling asleep. And I'm up there, and I'm switching the TV. Now I have it to myself, and I see this, and I see this movie, and I see this guy, and I'm like, I said, is this for real? Because when I saw it, I thought that, I said, wait a second, this is like, it was surreal. It was like, is this happening? Like, is there really somebody out there that's doing this? And I'm like, wow, but whatever it was, I didn't change it. I was captivated by it, and I just kept watching it. And I kind of parked it somewhere in my head. Like, I didn't share it with anybody. I just kind of parked it in my head. I'm like, wow, I didn't know what to think. I know that I liked it, didn't know why I liked it, but I also know that it was interesting. But him, Rudy, was captivating. He was captivating. And that kept me like watching the whole time. And so that's how I stumbled up on Rudy on the Dolemite movie. And I think that was the first one. I think that was the first Dolemite movie that I stumbled up on.
This is Rudy Ray Moore, better known as Dolemite. Now I'd like to show you just a few scenes from my latest adventure. If you crave satisfaction, this is the place to find that action. Coming to this theater as this next attraction is the picture that will put you in traction. Dolemite, starring me, Rudy Ray Moore, as Dolemite.
All right. The film came about, it was through a mutual friend. Who actually wound up becoming, was the director of photography on the show. And I was in Chicago at the time working on another project, and he called me and mentioned this to me. The gentleman is of Latin descent, so I didn't know if he understood what he was saying to me, because I thought he made a mistake or something like that, or I didn't think he was talking about who I thought he was talking about. So I didn't even know he knew who Dolemite was. So I actually hung up the phone and said, I told him that I would call him back, because I thought maybe I was getting a bad reception or something. So I called him, because he speaks with an accent that's kind of heavy at times. So I called, his name's Edgar Arellano, called him back and asked him to explain more what he was talking about. And then he explained it, and he said he thought that I would be the perfect person to direct it, because up until that time, I had worked on a lot of films, and where I was either an assistant director, second unit director. I never really got a directing credit, but this was actually going to be my first directing credit. And he knew that that's the direction I wanted to go in. So he thought, he said, listen, you should get back here. When you get back here, you should follow up. No, even when I was trying to get back, and when I was finished with that other project and I was coming in, I really didn't think, and usually an optimist, but I really didn't think that this was going to pan out. I'm like, I'll roll with it. But I don't think this is going to be something that's going to happen, So I got back to LA, I linked up with Edgar, and he said there was a meeting being held in South Los Angeles, and where Rudy would be at this meeting. And I was like, I hadn't seen Rudy or heard of Rudy in quite some time, so I was really looking forward to this. So I got there, and it was actually kind of like an audition session, because they were looking for some secondary characters and stuff. I didn't know I was walking into was what's going to be like something that I learned from Rudy, how hands-on he really was in all of his projects, which I should know that anyway, because I mean, if anybody who really know the inside story of Rudy Ray Moore and how he made his projects, he was always hands-on. So naturally, at this audition session, he was hands-on, and so that's where I met him for the first time. I think if I remember correctly, what he said that he thought the timing was right. The timing was right, because people had talked to him prior to that. It was the beginning and close to the year 2000. The timing was right for Dolemite to resurface, and I think it was along those lines that that he thought it was a good idea at that time to bring the character back to life. A lot of what Rudy, how Rudy worked, he works somewhat off instincts and gut feel, and so he's a person. If he gets a good feel about somebody, it doesn't even matter if that person had no prior experience. If he has a gut feel about you as a person, he will extend that opportunity. And so that's pretty much what I gained, what I felt when I was there. He'll even reach out to somebody and ask, somebody what they think about a particular situation. So basically, again, which is kind of, is something that I eventually learned, is like Rudy empowers people. He gives them opportunity, but he also empowers them in terms of taking an initiative and don't feel like, somebody is looking over your shoulder, although he's hands-on. He wants you to do what you do. Well, he questioned me about my experience of knowing about the character itself, and luckily for me, I did. Now, I wouldn't go outside of the realm to tell you that at that time I was a number one Dolemite fan, but I was very much aware of who Dolemite was and the character and stuff like that growing up. But he didn't do like a trivia or anything like that. He did mention that he wanted it. He was very clear on the fact that he wanted it to feel like all Dolemite movies have felt. Like he didn't want to veer away from just the feel of it and just the look of it. There's certain things that had to be a part of it, which was the girl kung fu team. He had to get the Dolemite girls. So that was very, very important. And then there were certain things. Again, there were certain things that had to be important. The conflict between him and the antagonist. It's always something that was very big. And his involvement with Jerry Jones' character, who played the captain or the police officer that he has an insight with, which was there was just things that carried over from a lot of the other shows, other movies, that he wanted to be part of it. He kind of gave me, he was like, it's your film, you're going to get an opportunity to direct, and He says, I've done this before with other directors where I give them a break. And he says, and I remember really pointing that out to me that, this is going to be my opportunity to direct, and he's going to make that happen. And I've never forgotten that at all. I would always be, just so thankful to Rudy for giving me that opportunity, because he didn't have to.
Way down in the jungle deep, the badass lion stepped on the signifying monkey. The monkey said, motherfucker, can't you see why you standing on my goddamn feet? Right on. The lion said, I ain't heard a word you said. Said, if you say 3 more, I'll be stepping on your motherfucking head. Now the monkey lived in the jungle in an old oak tree. Bulls shaking the lion every day in the week. Where every day before the sun go down, the lion would kick his ass all through the jungle town.
He's the only man that I know, probably maybe James Earl Jones, that could just could fill up a room with his voice, so resounding without a microphone. But yet, if you met him in person, very polite, very humble. Nothing about the characters is actually even a depiction of who Rudy is as a person. Very humble, traditional, just manners like to the nine. Shake your hand. He loves people. Somebody come up and says, "Hey, Mr. Rudy, oh, I love all your movies," and he'll just say, thank you, and he'll just be happy that somebody watched his movie and know who he is. I never, at no point at all, the word ego or anything ever crossed. I never saw Rudy exemplify any kind of ego or anything like that. Again, he was very strong, though. He was very strong. It can be stubborn. Anybody who knows Rudy will know that. He's very stubborn. If there was something that he wanted done a certain way, that's how he wanted it. And you move along with it. And then, you'll get some and you'll lose some. But, yeah, don't try to go against him on something that he feels very strongly about. You will lose the battle quickly. I don't know if anybody's ever drawn these association or these comparisons. It's in a way how Michael Jackson in his appearances in public comes across very docile and very, just like a kid, and just very, just so, he's not what you see on stage. And then he gets on stage and he explodes. And you go, wait a second, this was that guy that's just talking and you barely could hear him because he's so childlike in his appearance. And then he gets on stage and then this other person comes about. It's exactly like that with Rudy. Like, Rudy would show up to the set and everything. It's not like he showed up on the set rah, like, oh, man, let's get this going and let's do this and let's do this. No, that is not, at least not my experience. When he showed up, he was expecting everything to be on point. He's very on point about everything. He's knowledgeable. He asks the right questions and stuff like that. But it's not like he comes with all this energy and all this stuff and all of that. But you get him in front of the camera, and you really don't even have to give him lines and scripts or anything like that. The scripts are always there. But I would go to Rudy and I said, Rudy, now this is the scene where, this guy captures you, and he's trying to hold you, and you're going to try to break out of here. And he would say, okay, Frank, I have it. I had it. Give me about a minute or two, and I'll have it. I don't think Rudy ever, as a matter of fact, I know Rudy never asked me for the script. I don't think Rudy's ever asked me for the script. He knew the script was there and it was available. Jerry Jones, who's the writer, was always on set. So if there was something to be said or talked about, he would say, Frank, get Jerry over here, please, and we'll talk about it. And he'd get into character, and boom, it's on. The thing that Rudy felt very strongly about actually threw me off, how detailed he was about the art department. He was very, very strong about the art department. Like, I would think that maybe, just his clothes or whatever, but he was on point with his wardrobe and stuff like that. But I have never really worked with an actor or somebody of that magnitude, and it was his money and he was behind the project, so I could get it. But I was very surprised at how detailed he was and so he was just very fanatical about the art department. Like most people would just let that go. It's like, oh, we don't have a cup or we don't have a spoon here. Okay, we'll shoot it without it and we'll just move on. No, he was very detailed about the art department. I found that to this day, it trips me out how detailed he was about that. The first time when it came about, I just thought it was a fluke. And as the movie went on, it was something. And then he came to me and made it a point to tell me that it's a big part of filmmaking, that you have to make sure that the art department was in place, Frank. All right, because all along while I was making the movie, he was teaching me stuff and he was telling me stuff that he picked up along the way when he came about. And I just so happened to have a relationship with Rudy, not just on the movie, but outside after that movie was finished. And which to this day, I was very honored to be like that because Rudy stayed in touch with me. I stayed in touch with Rudy. Anytime Rudy lived in Las Vegas, and anytime he came to LA, he made it a point of duty to find out if I was around and if I would want to have a meal with him. And would sit and eat together. And he's very direct. Rudy, if you would ask me what is the number one, because I still remember what the number one thing I learned from Rudy, not only on that movie, but moving forward in life, because it stayed with me. I remember, and we had problems. We had problems making the movie in terms of schedule, things that happened, just obstacles, movie making obstacles, and personal obstacles and things like that went along with us making this movie. But I remember Rudy coming to me, and I don't know if he had seen exasperation on me or it was just observation, his own observation. But he pointed out to me that whatever happens while I'm directing, he said, don't get too caught up in what is not happening and what is supposed to happen. He says, always remember to tell the story that is written. He says, if you're directing and you lose sight of the story, then that's how you will fail as a director. But as long as what you're filming is telling the story, you will be successful. Yeah, and that's exactly. And that's what my partner told me. Because one of the things that I fought while I was making the movie was, and looking back at it in retrospect, I see how young I was at the time. I was so conditioned and had been on so many movies, and I was used to doing things the right way, that I didn't actually understand that if something didn't work properly on this movie, it was okay. In the Dolemite world, if the microphone was in, that was fine. But I was so particular about stuff that actually one of the reviews that I saw on this movie was that, whether they liked it or not, they said it was probably technically one of the best executed Dolemite movie that they saw. So that's when it occurred to me, and my partner would tell me along the way, Frank, don't worry about it. It is a Dolemite movie. Because even with the shootout with Blakely, who was Jerry Jones's character in the alleyway, we shot that downtown in the middle of freezing nights and stuff like that. It was a heavy shootout thing, and we had a gun wrangler, we had all this stuff, and I was going full on and all that stuff, and basically. It probably could have been a little. It probably should have been a little funny. I should have been within the Dolemite experience funny, but I took it so serious that it was like, okay, man, loosen up a little here, Frank. It's a Dolemite movie, So it was interesting. The massage scene, how was that? Oh, that was fun. I think Rudy had, whenever there was girls on the set and women, Rudy was very happy. Like, he was very happy with that scene. He was giggling, and he would get into character with that. He would think, like he would mess with the girls and say, "Girl," he says, "you got to come over here and you got to massage me, make me feel good, girl." So he would get very animated when those scenes were, because some of those scenes and that kind of character is a lot of what people know of Dolemite. The sexy girls. The Dolemite, sex experiences and stuff like that. So he wanted to make sure that he himself was in as big a character as he could when those scenes were happening. He played it up. He was over the top with that. So he was very happy with those. I think the toughest thing for Rudy on this film, and he told me this afterwards many times, sitting down and eating, was how sick he was while making that film. As a matter of fact, he was so sick, and he never made that clear. He never told us that, but it did occur on the set where he got extremely ill to the point where um, the ambulance came, and they thought that Rudy could have passed on the set, but he had he was arthritis, but I think he needed insulin and stuff like that to resuscitate him. But I think this is a story that I don't think has ever been leaked out or anything like that, because nobody on the set ever had an interview to talk about it. But yeah, Rudy was pronounced dead on the set by the ambulance, and while making the movie, he passed out, and it was Jimmy Lynch, who was his close confidant, that said no, he just didn't take his shots this morning, and he's probably running low on energy, and he's not dead. So please hit him with a shot of insulin and stay with him. And yep, that's exactly what happened. His heart started beating again, and he came back around and continued. And that's the true story. I didn't talk to Rudy about it. I spoke to Jimmy about it, and Jimmy just looked at me, and he just gave me a look, and he said, "Man, I've been through this with him before, man, so I know." I said, so Jimmy should we like wrap this up, or he says no. He says, first of all, if I did that or allowed that to happen, he said Rudy would never forgive me. That's the first thing that would happen. And second of all, he says, like I said, I've experienced this with him before. That's why I knew what to do. He says, we have to finish. We have to continue to finish. But I never really talked to Rudy about it. Now, I went over to Rudy and asked him if he was okay. Can I get him anything or whatnot? And he said he's fine. We ordered lunch and stuff, and we moved on, and things continued. So I didn't even have time to react to it, because I didn't know. Because when he said bring the ambulance, the way it was presented to me is that Rudy's just not feeling well, and they're going to get the ambulance for precautionary measures. Okay, so the ambulance is going to come. They're going to get Rudy going, and if they got to take him to the hospital, then we'll just pick up filming another day. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. This is Rudy. So whatever happens, the best thing first is to make sure he's healthy. So I wasn't tripping out on anything. I just thought, but while the ambulance is there and they have him on the gurney, and is after I saw Jimmy over there going, no, Jimmy is making a big commotion about, no, do what I say, and so it's really after the fact that I learned really what went down. I mean, I was like from the outside looking in, but it wasn't like I knew that went down. I mean, yeah. I think we got him back. We took a break. We got some lunch in, and everybody sat around, and Rudy was Rudy again.